This one has another good Aunt March, Mary Wickes. She was another great actress during the old Hollywood era. It is one of those small moments. Aunt March is having tea with Marmee, and Jo runs off after Marmee says, Meg can have my gloves. Jo screams, you can have Marmee's gloves. Aunt March is like, oof, and Marmee is like, more tea, and is like, no thank you. I always thought that moment was amusing. Mary Wickes, she is a phenomenal actress. If I remember correctly, that moment was improvised by Susan Sarandon. It was not in the script. I did like her. She was one of those actresses that managed to give that balance of likable and non-likable. She is not as much compared to some other Aunt Marches.
She really steals every scene she is in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
She's funny.
How faithful do you think this version is? There are times when I go, it is pretty faithful, but then I go, there are moments when they went with a little liberty, which sometimes I think that is okay. Sometimes I'm like,
To me, this would be the perfect version of Little Woman if it would not romanticize Jo and Laurie. Every adaptation does that, which is unfortunate. If this movie would not do that, it would get all 5 stars from me. Now it's like 4.5 stars.
Another thing I wish that there was a little bit more is Meg and John. We do get a little bit, but I don't feel like they are as prominent as in some other versions. They did have their moments. I did like they surprised him with the twins. I thought that was cute. I think, like you said, 4.5 kind of vibe.
There's a really funny scene. You know, the moment Laurie is in the window shouting, "Come and play with me, it is so boring here." And then John goes like, "Do not shout at the ladies." Then he goes to the window and is like, "Sorry." Then Laurie sits at the table, really bored, and he's like, "What those girls do all day long?" And John says something like, "Women's lives are mysterious to us." That is a really funny scene. John, he has like a magnifying glass in his hands and he's playing with it. And I'm like, maybe John is bored too, teaching this little guy.
You remember the scene with Meg's glove? I always thought Meg gave him the glove. I got to say, it is one of the prettiest Little Women films. The period pieces from the 90s overall, they always look so pretty. Even if I don't know the movie, I watch it and I have a feeling of nostalgia. I don't know why. Somehow the 90s always manages that, and I don't know, is it partially because how pretty the film is or the score? I want to mention the score of this because this one has the most beautiful score. I actually have the soundtrack on my computer because I just love it, especially the back song, Casting Away, because it is so emotional and it makes you feel something. Aesthetically, this film is so nice.
Every frame of it could be a painting. I think in the 90s they did try to make very authentic versions when they made period dramas. Now it is postmodernism, where they make fun of the original stories. It is more angsty and nihilistic. For example, the latest Persuasion. In the 90s they were more loyal to the original material. That is one of the reasons why I enjoy 90s period dramas. They did their research. I know that when they did this movie, they literally went to Victorian houses, went through old trunks. They went to museums to find original, authentic dresses and stuff like that.
This is why DVDs will never fade out, for me at least. I am a total nerd for special features. I will watch all of it. There is a special feature that talks about the costumes, and I love it. I forget her name. She talked about the fabric. This fabric in this period was most affordable one. I went with this dress. It may not be the most fashionable, but it is most mature for Jo. That was the opera dress that Jo wears. That is a big step for her because she wants to be less tomboyish and be more womanly. I really like the costumes. The costume designer really knew her stuff and did her research, and she knew that time period, how to translate the characters' story arcs through their looks.
What do we think about Trini Alvarado as Meg?
I like her. I haven't seen many films of her.
I think the actress is from Puerto Rico. I read this quote from her where she said that She was happily surprised that she was casted as Meg because she is a Latino.
Let me see. I check. Yes, she was born in New York. Her mother is Puerto Rican flamenco dancer and her father was Spanish born. I figured from the name that she might have some roots there, but I didn't know she is fully Latina. We don't see too much of Meg's story in the movie. I did feel we did get that progression of teenage Meg, who is really dreamy and hopeful and wants riches and wealthy things and wanting to fit into the society, to being more like, no, maybe Brooke is poor, but he loves me. I like that scene at Christmas. It is her, Marmee, and Jo butting heads. Jo is like, you are going to marry that guy. And she is like, I like him. I love him. He is a good man. I don't care that he is poor. You can really tell Meg is not over with her feelings. It is clear she does. She may not tell the people how much she really loves him. But then we get the scene later when Mr. March comes home and we see her and John pretty much making out. I think it worked to show how much earlier she was like, oh, I do like John. He proposed in a letter and Jo is making a face. He proposed you that way. But then her feelings come out more. If I had to compare Meg to another literal character, I would compare her to Jane Eyre because she is very reserved with her feelings. But I think it came out very well, even if there was not a lot of John and Meg scenes. There was definitely a lot. Clearly, they like each other, but neither one is quite ready to say anything to the other person type of thing.
I don't know how old Eric Stoltz was when he played John. You do get the sense that there is a bit of an age difference between the two actors. I think he is maybe in his late 20s, early 30s.
Not quite as a big age difference as obviously between Jo and Friedrich. I do feel like he was a little bit older. Let me see. He is 5 to 6 years older.
That is not so much. Hello, friends. It is Niina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show. It is always very vague in the book what is the age difference between Meg and John.
I am always curious to know what people think is a huge age gap. We were talking with my grandfather, and I have a great uncle who married a woman who was 6 years older, and my mom was like, that is a huge gap. And I'm like, is it? Because I always felt like it is either between 0 years to 5 years. That is your average couple. They are either the same age or somewhat 5 years older. I feel like that is generally the average to a person in a relationship. I don't feel like it is not until when you get into like 8 to 10 where you can go, that is a vague age gap. I am always curious to know. I feel like everybody feels differently. What do you think?
Everybody is different. My grandmother and my grandfather had 12-year age gap, and I always got these Jo March vibes from my granny because my grandfather proposed my granny when she was fixing the roof.
That sounds romantic if she was just like hammering away, and he is like, wow, you are really good with the hammer. Would you like to marry me? And she's like, what?
There is my Jo and Friedrich archetype couple, my grandparents. Woman fixing the roof. That is something that Jo would totally do. Jo would shovel the snow, she would fix the roof.
Friedrich would be like, wow, you are a strong, independent woman. Marry me, please.
My grandparents were together for 40 years. Then grandfather passed. Granny never remarried. My grandmother was also very religious.
My grandparents from my mom's side, they had a 20-year age gap and they were married until the day he passed away. Every time when I said that when I was younger, people were like, was he rich? Oh God, no. He worked in the movie theater. That is how they met. He worked with projector and she was the usher.
Oh, I love that. So romantic.
I don't know if that is the official story. She is now passed for a good 20 years. So I never got the chance to ask, but I presume that is how they met. We have pictures of him working at the movie projector. She was like, oh yeah, when I was younger, I was a movie usher. 20 years age difference.
Another similarity between my grandmother and Jo. My grandmother wanted to become a teacher. She really wanted to get higher education. After the Civil War, Finland was a poor country. Her parents didn't allow her to go to school. She had to work in the farm and look after her siblings. It's a little sad.
When you said that, it brought me back to the movie. I think this is the first adaptation with not only Jo getting Plumfield, but also making a clear choice to say, I want to make it a school. In 78, Jo still has personal life in the end. In 70, I can't remember. I think it ends when Friedrich proposes. This is the first time we actually see Jo making that plan and telling Friedrich, I want you to be with me, not only as a teacher, but as my husband. That is something that was different about this adaptation.
It makes me really frustrated because now you get people saying, oh, Jo was forced to start a school because Greta Gerwig lied to people about it. There's a quote in Louisa May Alcott's diary where she was in her 20s and she literally writes that in the future, when she has more money, she would like to start a school.
She is not the only one. When I was younger, before I decided I want to do more writing, I did think about being a teacher. The thing about teachers and writers, somehow they are connected. They have some knowledge they want to pass on. I want to talk about this film's take on Laurie/Amy relationship. This one, I think, feels in some ways incompetent. The problem I have with this one, and I think partially too, is mainly because people who watch it will get it this way. I have seen people sit there and go, how could Jo turn down Christian Bale? And I am like, you are just looking at it through Christian Bale as Laurie, but I thought he was a little subdued here as well. He wasn't as angry in the proposal as I would have liked him to be, and he was definitely very creepy. I just get so annoyed when everyone ignores the fact that in the proposal scene, he just outright puts his finger to Jo's lips to make her stop talking and mutes her with force. And then they still go like, why did she turn down Laurie? And I'm like, he is not listening to her. He keeps inserting himself, which in a way that is the way he is supposed to be. We are supposed to see that he is not a very good match to Jo. I am hitting this with Amy's and Laurie's relationship here because we have these nice moments when Laurie takes Amy to Aunt March, and they have this really nice little moment where he is being very kind to her. I will take you riding. I will take you wherever you want, France and Paris. It is a cute little moment where Amy is like, I don't want to die because there are so many things I want to do. I want to be kissed. Laurie says, I will kiss you before you die. That was great. And the other moment that was great is when Beth passes and he comes to her.